Alright YouTube, so we are back of course to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and today I just wanted to have a discussion with you guys about this exclusivity. Now this is something I wanted to do yesterday, I wanted to make this video yesterday, but we had previously uploaded like 3 videos in the span of about 24 hours, which is so much more than we ever do, at least as of late, and so I wanted to let the channel breathe a little bit, but also to kind of get my thoughts together on this topic. And by the way, I do appreciate the support on the channel recently. The fact that I could put out 3 videos so close together and they all got around the same amount of views and traction and things like that, like that's fucking awesome. I try to put out as much content as I possibly can in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake and whatever it is, whether it's news, discussions, theories, whatever we can make a video about. I've seen it so often in my comments, and I've seen it on Twitter and social media, like people thanking me for just being one of those channels out there that's still talking about FF7 and Remake, because there's other channels out there that have built their following off of this community, the Remake community, but then because they didn't like Remake, they turned their back on the community, turned their back on this game, and don't make content about it anymore, really. And I'm here for the long haul, my dudes. I'm a massive FF7 fan. I've been here since 2015, since the game got revealed. I'll be here for the next 20, 70, 45 years, whatever, whenever we finally get a fight safe for Sephiroth. So again, thank you for the support of the channel. Now, the sappy bullshit out of the way, let's get to the damn topic. So to be clear here, this isn't meant to be a video of me just bitching for like 10 minutes because the DLC is not coming to PS4. There's going to be part of that, obviously, otherwise we couldn't really have this discussion, but that's not what this video is about. So kind of the go-to that I've seen over the past like couple of days when we're talking about this, you know, why is it on PS5 and not PS4? The go-to that I see a lot is people bringing up Cyberpunk as they've been doing since that game launched. Like, we don't want another Cyberpunk situation. Here's the thing. First and foremost, Cyberpunk is kind of in a league of its own. Like that, like Fallout 76, and probably a handful of other games launch in that kind of state. That doesn't happen very often with a AAA game. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often. Like, obviously, plenty of games launch with problems, whether that's, you know, frame rate issues, bugs, glitches, texture pop-ins, whatever it might be. But to the degree that Cyberpunk had it, like, doesn't happen that often. And this Cyberpunk comparison would only hold weight if Remake performed badly on the PlayStation 4, which clearly it does not. Other than the texture pop-ins, which I believe is an engine thing, something to do with Unreal Engine 4, not because the game's on PlayStation 4. So other than the obvious texture issues, there's zero evidence that if Remake Part 2 were to be on PlayStation 4, that it'd be another Cyberpunk. It's ridiculous to say. But everything we just discussed isn't even the point of what everybody's upset about. We're not even really talking about Part 2. We're talking about DLC for a game that is currently, at least before Intergrade got revealed and stuff like that, we're talking about a game that is strictly and only for PlayStation 4. So when you reveal a DLC for a game that's PlayStation 4, but then it's locked behind next gen, it's kind of ridiculous. I've seen some people say that we should have been prepared for this, we should have seen this coming. There's not a single person out there, and you can say that you predicted it, and you're a liar. Nobody has seen this game getting DLC, and that DLC being locked to the next gen only. That's just simply, nobody predicted that. It just was not a thing. Again, putting aside Intergrade and like the backwards compatibility on PS5 to play Remake, like 99% of their audience for this game is on PlayStation 4, so it literally doesn't make any sense. Monetarily, or just literally, for this DLC to be on PS5. As we looked at with the previous video, they said that, you know, quote-unquote, it's optimized for PlayStation 5. Well, they chose to do that. They chose to build it from the ground up for the PlayStation 5. They didn't have to do that. They could have made this Yuffie DLC for the PlayStation 4 version and then just gave it the PlayStation 5 enhancements like they did for the base game. The only way that I can make it make sense in my head from a money perspective, because their entire audience is on PS4, is Sony giving them a shit ton of money to make the DLC PS5 exclusive, or at least next-gen exclusive. And my guess would be to help like push sales of the PS5, but the PS5 is not having problems selling. There's just not, the demand's too high. There's just not enough goddamn PS5s in the world, and that's probably the biggest issue here overall, is irregardless of whether the DLC is PS5 exclusive or not, people can't get their hands on a fucking PS5. That's the issue here. It's the biggest fucking issue. But even if we put aside the scarcity of the PlayStation 5, it's also a huge investment for a lot of people. It's $400 or $500 depending on which PS5 you want to get, or a lot more than that if you want to buy from a scalper. And even if the world was back to normal again, some people just don't have that kind of money to throw around. And the fact that we're in a pandemic where people are, you know, struggling financially, right? Some people don't have jobs, some people are looking for jobs, people getting laid off, so on and so forth. People just don't have this kind of money right now. And for a lot of people, man, throughout the year 2020, Remake was that game that allowed them to escape the world, right? We were all stuck indoors, locked down, so on and so forth, and people invested a lot of their time into Remake. And here we are in 2021, this shit seems to be going nowhere, and the people that use this game as an escape cannot continue to do so with the new content that's coming out because they simply cannot play it. It just feels almost tone-deaf to me, or like Square Enix isn't self-aware of what's going on in the world, right? Despite them being very aware of that, obviously they've had to work on Remake remotely. This, to me, massively dropped the ball here. I have absolutely zero problem with them wanting to move on to the PS5 if we're discussing Part 2, but we're talking about DLC for a game that is only on PlayStation 4. Like, make it make sense. Like, unless Sony is cutting them a fat-ass check, I just can't understand it. And one of my biggest issues with this subject overall is the lack of communication. This game's been out for almost a year, and we've had really nothing about it. Obviously, we've been discussing the game for the past year or so. There's been interviews and ththings, but the game itself, they're not really talking about it. And we got 0 updates for this game, no additional content at all. They could have added, like, extra battle simulation stuff. They could have done some more Corneo Coliseum stuff. They could have added shit to this game. They added absolutely nothing. And with the lack of communication comes, we don't know how many parts there's going to be. We don't know when to expect Remake Part 2. We don't know what platform to expect the other games on. We didn't know if there's ever going to be DLC for Part 1. DLC is coming out, but now it's locked behind a several $100 paywall. Like, again, they're not talking about this shit. We don't know how to prepare for this stuff. In regards of what they say in interviews, they absolutely 100,000% know how many games there's going to be, right? Like, right now they're making Part 2. It's going to start somewhere probably around Calm, and they know where it's going to end at, whether that is Nibelheim, whether that's Junon, whether that's the Forgotten Capital, the Northern Cave. Like, they know where Part 2 is ending, so they have an idea of either, 2, 3, or 4 games, however many there's going to be. It's just, man, some clarity would be nice. If we just knew what the hell was going on at all with anything, that would be nice. And this entire time we're sitting here waiting, we've been talking about for months, a year or so now, is there going to be DLC for Remake Part 1? And this entire time, while we're waiting, expecting DLC and updates for Part 2 and when's Part 2 happening, they're working on goddamn mobile games. Now, obviously, these mobile games aren't being made by the exact same team, but you still have somebody like Tetsuya Nomura, who is obviously the co-director of Remake Part 1, who's also overseeing these mobile projects, and it's like, can we get some goddamn focus here? Who cares about these mobile games? Don't get me wrong here, Ever Crisis looks great, my dudes. We're going to get to play sort of like a remaster, if you want to call it that, of Crisis Core. We're going to get an experience before Crisis, technically, for the first time, and we're also going to actually get to play the events of Advent Children. I get to experience Dirge of Cerberus for the first time for myself, because I've not played the PS2 version. And obviously, I'm going to check out the First Soldier as well. There's aspects to these mobile games that are good, but at the end of the day, I care vastly more about the remake project than this shit. The thing that sucks as well is, like, this game took so long to come out. Like, CyberConnect 2 wasted however many years of development. They scrapped them in 2017 and brought the development in-house. Who knows how much of that they actually kept. But in theory, this game should have been out before 2020, which means that this DLC, if it was going to come out for this game still, would have been out long before there's ever even a PS5. And it feels like everybody that bought Remake is being punished because it took them so damn long to get this game out that the next-gen console is released. Going back to something I said earlier in the video, most people don't really have a problem with them moving on to the PS5 when it comes to the next game, or leaving Midgar. In theory, we should have a big world to explore. You want the best technology available for that. That is perfectly fine. Though I do still stand by the statement I've said in the past that I think Part 2 would be perfectly fine on PS4, depending on what they want to do with it and how big it is, of course. People act like every game before the PlayStation 5 was trash, right? No game was ever beautiful. No game was ever massive. No game ever performed well. Every game before PS5 was Cyberpunk 2077. That's how this community thinks sometimes, and it's so weird to me. We just apparently never had good games before the PS5 came out, man. Life's been rough. But again, Part 2 is not even the focus. This DLC gets revealed out of nowhere, and the majority of people that played Remake that want to play the DLC cannot, and I think they have every right to be upset about that. Anyways, but that's pretty much the video. I just wanted to kind of give my overall thoughts and opinion on this topic in one cohesive video. I want to talk about it more in the previous video. We spent the first couple of minutes discussing it, but I obviously, in a news roundup video, cannot spend 8 minutes discussing this. So, of course, I want to pass off to you guys in the comment section. We've had a couple of days to sit on this, to think about it, and now that a couple of days have passed, what are your overall thoughts on the Yuffie DLC being locked to PS5? Either way, my dudes, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We'll stay updated more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter, dashingdavidYT, and my Discord. The links to my social networks are in the description. And in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain or leave it like Cobain.